They tried to wreck my career, not realizing I was the one actually signing off on their paychecks. Stick around, because what started out as a backstab turned into the boldest move of my life. And hey, if you like stories about quiet payback and unstoppable comebacks, you might want to hit that subscribe button. Money can't buy happiness, but it sure can bankroll the perfect revenge, especially when your own toxic family has no clue you're sitting on a $500 million fortune. I found that out the hard way just last month, when my parents and my brother tried to take me down at work, not realizing the person they were targeting was the owner of the whole company. My name's Julia Park, but most folks in the business world just call me Jules. On paper, I'm the new Chief Strategy Officer at Novolux Biosciences, a cutting-edge biotech company up in Seattle. What my family doesn't realize is that 2 months ago, I quietly became the majority owner, snapping up shares through a private trust and a series of low-key deals. Getting here wasn't some overnight thing. It all started nearly 18 years ago, back when I was a quiet scholarship kid grinding through biomedical engineering at Westlake Institute. Meanwhile, my little brother Eric breezed through Stanford, with our parents picking up the tab for everything. Eric needs support, Mom would always say. You've always been so independent, Jules. Independent didn't even begin to cover it. I was juggling lab work, tutoring gigs, and side jobs coding just to make ends meet. Meanwhile, Eric was off vacationing in Europe, showing off every wine tasting and yacht party on social media. But I kept my head down and stayed focused. I had a plan, and I knew if I stuck with it, it would all pay off. And you know what? It did. By the time I hit 30, I'd already launched and sold 2 biotech startups. I kept my name out of the headlines, funneled the profits through shell companies, and let everyone think I was just another mid-level manager grinding away. Why all the secrecy? Well, I'd seen firsthand how money can mess up relationships. My parents always acted like Eric's steady job in corporate sales was the gold standard, while my work was treated like some risky science experiment. You should talk to Eric, Mom would say at dinner. He can help you get into real business. So I let them think I needed their help, that I was struggling. Meanwhile, I was pulling off my biggest move yet, quietly taking over Novolux Biosciences, the company where I'd been working under the radar for just over a year. The place was undervalued but full of potential. Using a web of trusts and shell companies, I took control without anyone catching on. When the board promoted me to CSO, they thought they were just hiring a loyal strategist. They had no idea they were handing the job to the new owner. Eric's reaction? Let's just say it was priceless. Must be nice to finally catch a break, Eric said with a smirk at our monthly family dinner. Hope you're not in over your head. Running a company's a whole different animal than playing around with science projects. Mom and Dad shot each other worried looks. Maybe Eric could mentor you, Mom offered, trying to be helpful. He's been leading teams for years, sweetheart. I just smiled and held back a laugh. If only they knew about the stack of acquisition papers locked up in my home safe. I'll keep that in mind, I replied, keeping my cool. But Eric wasn't satisfied with just making snide remarks. My promotion had thrown off the family pecking order. He'd always been the golden child, the dependable one with the traditional career, while I was the quiet nerd who never quite fit in. The first warning sign came when he started dropping by Novolux Biosciences for casual lunches with department heads. I watched from my office window as he chatted up senior staff, pretending to be concerned about his overwhelmed sister, all while fishing for any hint of weakness in my leadership. Then the anonymous tips started rolling into HR, claims about fake degrees, rumors about padded credentials. All of it was nonsense and easy to disprove, but the message was clear, someone was out to get me. I'm just looking out for you, Eric said sweetly when I called him out. You know how it is. Tech companies are quick to promote women these days. Gotta hit those diversity numbers. I'd hate to see you crash and burn in front of everyone. I let him keep digging, curious to see just how far he'd go. That answer showed up yesterday, delivered in a sealed envelope to the board of directors. Inside was a slick dossier packed with forged bank statements, doctored emails, and a TIGIL sign that painted me as a criminal, embezzlement, insider trading, fake reports. It was a masterclass in dirty tricks. The board called an emergency meeting for Friday morning. Eric must have heard about it through his office grapevine, because at dinner last night he was practically glowing. The board wants me there tomorrow, he announced, all puffed up. Sounds like there's going to be a big shakeup at the top. Mom and Dad were beaming, not even wondering why I wasn't invited to this mysterious meeting about my own job. What they don't know is that I spent last night putting together my own dossier, documenting every lie, every manipulation, every whisper campaign in detail. And this time, I'm also revealing who really owns Novolux Biosciences. Tomorrow, they're finally going to find out who's been running the show. And if you think Eric's about to get away with it, you might want to stick around, because what happens next is going to flip the whole story on its head. Honestly, I should be furious. I should be heartbroken that my own brother tried to destroy my career, and that my parents were all too happy to RSVP to my professional execution. But sitting here in my home office, surrounded by printouts of fake bank statements and phony email trails, I actually feel calm. Eric's scheme, twisted as it is, handed me the perfect opportunity, a rare chance to face not just his betrayal, but a lifetime of being underestimated and overlooked. Sometimes, the sweetest revenge is letting people think they've won, right up until the moment they realize they never had any power at all. The board meeting is set for 9 a.m. sharp. My family will show up thinking they're about to watch me get taken down. Instead, they're about to learn why you never bet against the quiet one in the corner, especially when she owns the whole table. Everything's set, the stage is ready, and for once in my life, I'm actually excited for a meeting. I got to Novolux Biosciences early that Friday, just to make sure I didn't miss a second of the show. Right on schedule, at exactly 8:45 a.m., Eric swaggered into the lobby, looking sharp in his best suit. Mom and Dad trailed after him, dressed like they were about to celebrate a win they hadn't actually earned. "Is the board ready for us?" Eric asked the receptionist, practically buzzing with excitement. The look on his face reminded me of that time in 8th grade when he accidentally deleted my science project the night before it was due. From my office upstairs, I watched as they were led to the executive conference room. The board members showed up soon after, all looking serious and tight-lipped, just as I'd asked them to be. Everyone had gotten my private message the night before. At exactly 9 a.m., I pushed my chair back, took a steadying breath, and made my way down the hall. It was showtime. David Lin, our board chair, was in the middle of a sentence as I walked in. "These allegations against Ms. Park are extra Julesy serious. Sorry I'm late," I said cheerfully, sliding into my seat at the table. Eric's head snapped up, his smug grin faltering as confusion flickered across his face. "Jules, this is a closed session. You weren't invited," he said sharply, shooting nervous glances at the directors. I folded my hands and kept my voice calm. Actually, I decided to invite myself. It's a little tough to hold a board meeting without the company's owner present. The silence that followed was almost sweet. Eric's jaw dropped. Mom blinked like she was trying to clear her vision. Dad looked like he'd just bitten into a lemon. "What are you talking about?" Eric sputtered. "Novolux Biosciences is owned by shareholders. It's a public company," he scoffed, still clinging to his fantasy of being in control. "Not quite," I replied, nodding to my assistant, Priya, who stepped forward and started handing out folders to everyone at the table. Novolux Biosciences was public until 2 months ago, when Park's Strategic Holdings quietly bought it out. Want to take a wild guess who owns that? I watched as the truth started to dawn on everyone in the room. A few directors' eyes went wide as they flipped through the documents. Some had wondered about the mysterious trust behind the buyout, but nobody had figured out who was really pulling the strings until now. "This is crazy," Eric stammered. "You can't afford, you're just a lab geek, just a coder," I finished for him, grinning. "Yeah, you've made that point plenty of times." In fact, I turned to Priya. "Would you mind playing the recordings?" She tapped her tablet, and suddenly the room was filled with Eric's voice, dripping with fake concern. "Between us, Julia's not cut out for leadership," he said in one clip. "She's great in the lab, sure, but this job? She's going to crash and burn." Another recording played. "Have you noticed anything off in her department's finances? Might be worth a closer look." Every whisper, every sneaky move, every attempt to undermine me, captured and played back for everyone to hear, like a perfectly timed symphony. Eric started to shrink into his chair, the color draining from his face as the room grew icy. "And then there's this," I said, holding up the envelope he'd sent to the board, the one stuffed with fake statements and forged documents. Attempted character assassination. Faked financial misconduct. Deliberate sabotage of company leadership. Did you really think nobody would check any of this before making a move? "I was just trying to protect the company," Eric blurted out, his voice cracking. "You're not qualified. You've never been the one who wins. You don't deserve to be here." I looked at him and said quietly, "No, Eric. I'm the one who deserves to call you out for corporate espionage, for manipulating the company's image, for putting Novolux Biosciences at risk with your lies." Mom finally spoke up, her voice trembling. "Surely you wouldn't ruin your own brother's life, like he didn't try to ruin mine?" I shot back, turning to her. "Like you didn't show up today just to watch it happen?" Dad raised a hand, his voice weak. "We were just supporting Eric." "No," I interrupted. "You were doing what you've always done, assuming he was the one worth betting on." Then I turned to the board. "Sorry for the drama this morning," I said, standing up to address everyone, "but I needed you all to see exactly what's been going on. Mr. Eric Park has committed several serious violations in his attempt to sabotage my position here." I paused, letting the weight of that settle over the room. His actions didn't just target me, they put Novolux Biosciences at risk, legally and with regulators. David Lynn cleared his throat, looking at me carefully. "What would you like us to do, Miss Park?" I sat back down, folding my hands on the table. "First, I want it officially recorded that the board has reviewed and dismissed all allegations against me as completely false, based on verified evidence and our internal review. Second, I'm requesting that a formal letter be sent to Eric's employer, outlining his misconduct, including the audio, the fake evidence, and his attempts at corporate espionage. This kind of behavior should follow him in his career." "You can't," Eric said, his voice barely holding together. "Here's your rewritten part 3, following all your guidelines. You're going to ruin my career," Eric choked out. I looked at him, steady and unflinching. "Kind of like how you tried to ruin mine," I replied, my voice cool but cutting. "The difference is, I've got real evidence, actual documents that trace every move you made. Not the fake stuff you tried to use to frame me." Turning back to the board, I continued, "And one more thing, I want it officially recorded that Eric Park, along with both of our parents, are permanently banned from Novolux Biosciences property. If they try to contact any staff or meddle with company business, we'll escalate things legally, no hesitation." "Jules, please," Mom sobbed, mascara running down her cheeks. "We're family," I let out a short, bitter laugh. "Family is supposed to lift each other up. Family celebrates your wins. Family doesn't forge documents and spread lies just because they can't handle your success." Then I pulled out my last folder, my trump card. "This right here," I said, sliding it across the table, "is the contract for my first biotech company. I sold it for $50 million when I was 27. The second one? That went for $180 million 2 years later." I glanced over at Dad. "I could have bought you that fancy golf club membership you always wanted. I could have paid for every luxury trip you handed to Eric like they were trophies. But I didn't." They stared at the numbers, and I could see the shock on their faces, their old stories about me just crumbling away. I kept quiet because I wanted to see who'd stand by me when they thought I had nothing. Turns out, none of you passed that test. Eric looked like he'd seen a ghost. "You're firing me," he whispered. "No," I said softly. "Your own choices fired you, just like you tried to do to me. The only difference is, you actually did the things you're being accused of." I stood up, gathering my papers. "This board meeting is over," I said clearly. "David, please make sure all the records are filed and locked down." Then I turned to my family. "Eric, Mom, Dad, security will walk you out." "Wait," Eric called after me, his voice breaking as I reached the door. "Please, I'm sorry. I was jealous. I couldn't handle you finally doing better than me." His voice trembled. "We can fix this, right? We're still family." I paused and looked back at him one last time. "You know what sets us apart, Eric?" He looked up at me, eyes shining. "When you thought I was struggling, you pushed me down even further. When I was winning, I kept it quiet so you wouldn't feel small." I let out a breath. That's the difference between real success and whatever game you've been playing. The weeks that followed were something else. Eric lost his job. His company didn't waste a second after seeing the proof of what he'd done. News of my success at Novolux Biosciences started to spread, and suddenly the same country club folks who used to fawn over my brother were asking about me. Mom and Dad left teary voicemails. Eric sent handwritten apologies. Even his therapist mailed a letter, saying he was working on himself. I saved them all, but I never replied. 3 months later, I was working late when Tessa buzzed my office. "Someone's here to see you. Says it's personal." It was Eric, but not the polished, arrogant guy I remembered. He looked thinner, older, hair trimmed short. No expensive watch, no tailored jacket, just a plain shirt and a Manpriya envelope. "I'm not staying," he said quickly, holding up a hand. "I just need to say something." He stepped forward and set the envelope on my desk. "This has everything, passwords, contacts, all the info I dug up when I was trying to sabotage you. I'm also sending a letter to the board and my old employer, admitting everything. No excuses." I watched him for a moment. "Why now?" I finally asked. He shrugged, looking tired. "Because you were right. I wasn't building anything real. You did, and I hated you for it." He turned to leave, then paused. "I'm starting over. Small startup, entry-level job. No shortcuts this time. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that letting me fail taught me more than all the times our parents helped me cheat." He reached the door. "Eric," I called softly. He turned, a flicker of hope in his eyes. "Send me your resume in a year." "Not for a leadership job," I said gently, "but if you're serious about earning your way, we're always looking for people who want to work their way up." A single tear rolled down Eric's cheek, but he nodded, pulled himself together, and left without another word. 6 months later, Novolux Biosciences is doing better than I ever dreamed. We're developing biotech solutions that are changing lives, growing fast, and creating hundreds of new jobs across the Pacific Northwest. It's something real. Something that lasts. Mom and Dad still reach out now and then, usually when they want something, or when they want to brag about their CEO daughter at some dinner party. I keep things polite but distant. That approval I used to chase? I don't need it anymore. The corner office they said I'd never earn has a perfect view of the Seattle skyline. Some nights, I sit by the window watching the sun set behind the mountains, thinking about family, ambition, and how powerful it is to be underestimated. Just last week, I got a holiday card from Eric. No guilt, no requests, just a simple note. "You made it not because of us, but in spite of us." I'm learning to do the same. Maybe that's the real revenge, quiet, earned, undeniable. Thanks for listening to my story, for seeing me when so many people I cared about couldn't. Now I want to hear from you. Drop a comment and tell me what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have kept quiet, fought back sooner? Or maybe you've been through something similar, been the quiet one, the underestimated one, the person building in the shadows while others took the spotlight? I hope this space becomes more than just a story. Let it be a reminder that you don't need loud applause to prove your worth. Sometimes, your quiet strength is the loudest thing about you. And if you're on your own journey right now, working late, being overlooked, underestimated, don't stop. Keep building. Let your success speak louder than your pain. Support me by liking, sharing, and subscribing, not just for my next chapter, but for yours too. Because if I've learned anything, it's this. Success isn't about proving people wrong. It's about proving to yourself that you were always right to believe. So, what's your story? I'm listening and I hope the world is too. Because it's your turn to be seen.